Hello, today myself, Cole, as well as Bianca and Irene are going to be discussing protectionism within the United States, specifically policies associated with the U.S. shrimping industry and additional regulations when it comes to importing shrimp to the United States of America.
Import tariffs and anti-dumping legislations were put in place to promote domestic values and protect domestic jobs. In 2018, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana wrote a letter to President Trump asking that Chinese shrimp and crawfish be added to President Trump's increase on tariffs for Chinese goods to provide an economic boost for the domestic seafood industry. Congress responded by beefing up the abilities of federal agencies to guard against dumping. American shrimpers find it hard to compete with cheap foreign shrimp. The tariffs and legislation did not do what was expected because both buyers and sellers found ways around protectionism. U.S. shrimp buyers switched to new suppliers like Indonesia, which is not targeted by the anti-dumping legislation. The countries that were targeted started to send breaded or prepared shrimp because added value shrimp is exempt from the tariff. With large amounts of shrimp still coming into America, restaurants and grocery stores are able to sell foreign shrimp at low prices. Large amounts of imported shrimp at low prices leads to more consumption by American consumers. Recently, Louisiana passed the crawfish and shrimp labeling law that lets consumers know where the shrimp is coming from. In the U.S., new companies like API and True Shrimp Company are working to provide fresh, sustainable, clean sources of shrimp. True Shrimp Company already has plans to expand and provide more domestic jobs once their new location is in operation.
These protectionism policies affect their competitive nature on domestic markets as well as on international markets. Import tariffs, or the taxes on goods brought in from foreign markets, artificially increases the competitiveness of domestic firms by increasing the cost of competitors that are coming from outside of the same borders. These tariffs do negatively impact the international competitiveness for the domestic firms, making it less profitable to sell on an international stage as compared to just competing in the domestic markets. Anti-dumping policies, on the other hand, give domestic firms more stability and stabilize the domestic markets with the goal of helping both producers as well as consumers and not letting these smaller companies go out of business and get taken over by bigger monopolies, maybe from an international level. These policies make domestic firms more competitive on both domestic as well as international markets because they stabilize the domestic revenue stream that these companies will be getting, so they're not going to be subject to dumping from other countries or other larger monopolies. Within the U.S., there are various health regulations when it comes to raising shrimp, and those are enforced for importing via import tariffs discussed earlier. And therefore, producing shrimp domestically, you already have to abide by a lot of these health regulations, meaning that you're going to have no additional taxes when it comes to health requirements. Opponents of these health regulations say that it's just red tape to give domestic firms an advantage. However, there really is a benefit associated with enforcing these standards and really striving for a public population that is eating healthier shrimp.
Proponents of government protection for the shrimp industry believe it's a matter of promoting the U.S.'s domestic values. Domestic values in this case refers to the dissimilarities in safety standards between the U.S. and its foreign competitors as what is perceived as being morally acceptable. Firstly, there's large use of antibiotics in foreign shrimp farms. This is a large concern because the FDA has not approved the use of any antibiotics in shrimp farms regardless of whether they are domestic or foreign farms. As you can see by the chart, the majority of our shrimp is imported. This is a problem because many of these countries have been found to use antibiotics in their shrimp farms, especially Vietnam. The use of antibiotics has caused detrimental health effects to those who consume these tainted shrimp, as well as the development of deadly forms of cancer. Superbugs also tend to develop in these farms as viruses become resistant to the antibiotics used to fend them off. Domestic jobs are also a major concern as U.S. shrimpers believe the protection of the industry will provide more domestic jobs. They believe foreign competition puts domestic jobs at risk because of the large importation of shrimp, which has caused the value of the U.S. shrimp harvest to decrease by over 50%, resulting in many firms going out of business. Opponents of government protection believe that the original reasons for the industry's protection have become excuses to justify their government protection. Opponents believe the shrimp industry is now motivated by the benefit of collecting the revenue from import tariffs rather than safeguarding their domestic jobs. Foreign competitors also believe that the U.S. has become less efficient at producing shrimp because they rely on trawling and have a lower shrimp farm capacity, while competitors have a high output through their use of shrimp farms. Opponents of protectionism also believe that outcomes are difficult to predict as retaliatory tariffs can be placed in response to the U.S.'s import tariffs. This has been seen in the past as China and Vietnam have threatened to impose retaliatory measures against the U.S.'s soybean industry because they import large quantities of soybean from the U.S. There are several prominent trends that will emerge over time. Firstly, shrimp imports will continue to rise as consumers find cheaper countries to import from. Between 2003 and 2004 alone, imports from countries not targeted by the anti-dumping legislation increased by 48%. People have become creative as to how to avoid these tariffs. Not every shrimp product is covered by the anti-dumping tariff, such as breaded shrimp, so importers will begin to import those products that are exempt from the tariffs. Secondly, domestic aquaculture will continue to rise so that the U.S. can better compete with its foreign competitors. This is due to the fact that we only contribute less than 1% of the world's total aquaculture production. If we want to increase our market share, we will need to invest more into the aquaculture industry. Lastly, health and wellness trends will lead to stricter guidelines. The federal government has already announced to increase the FDA's inspection budget by $3.1 million in additional funding for foreign seafood. This is to ensure foreign compliance to all safety standards.